Hello everyone, welcome and thank you so much for joining today's AppDirect webinar. We're going to be diving into Beyond App Stores, the 5 biggest myths about cloud services. My name is Madeline and we're so excited to have attendees tuning in from all across the United States and abroad. I noticed some of you from Brazil, Germany, and China, and many other countries, so we're really excited to have you guys here. Joining me today is AppDirect's VP of Marketing, Stephen Banbury, along with our guest, Jeff Kaplan, who's founder and Managing Director of THINKstrategies. To kick things off, I think it'd be great if you two could both give me a brief rundown on what exactly you guys do. So, Stephen, why don't we start with you?
Great, thank you, Maddie. Well, I'm super excited to have such a diverse group attending from around the world today. Quickly, so I lead marketing for AppDirect globally. And AppDirect is the leading cloud service company. We unite providers, developers, and consumers of cloud services into one ecosystem. And this enables businesses of all sizes to find, buy, use, and manage the software they need to thrive.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. And Jeff, if you could tell us a bit about THINKstrategies, and then feel free to take it away from there.
Well, I'd be happy to, and thanks for having me, Maddie. THINKstrategies is a consulting firm that we founded 15 years ago now to look at how the world is changing from products to services. Back then, we were talking about ASPs and utility computing, and of course, today, we're talking about software as a service and cloud computing. And it's been interesting because when we first started, we talked about the myths of the software as a service world, and that world has now expanded exponentially into the brave new world of the cloud. And I'm really glad to be a part of this webinar because I do think there are a lot of myths associated with the cloud. And Stephen, I'm looking forward to walking through a few of them with you and trying to dispel those myths so that people have a better sense of what's hype and what's reality. And I think that the first myth that a lot of folks have is about the nature of this market. How big is it, and is it really a market that they can get involved in and be successful in? So let's talk about that, Stephen. Is this really a small market, a niche market, or what kind of market is it?
Well, great question to kick it off. So, cloud services are the fastest growing segment of a rapidly growing technology sector. And cloud services themselves are fast becoming an essential part of business strategy for providers, developers, and customers alike. In fact, companies are spending more on public cloud services than ever before. And in fact, I'm sure as the audience could see, when you look at the market snapshot, an increase in that from nearly 46 billion in 2013 up to 127 billion in 2018. And those numbers represent a huge growth, 23% CAGR, compounded annual growth, and 6 times faster growth than the IT industry overall. So what's interesting is to look at where does this investment actually go. So 72% going on SaaS, and this includes solutions like CRM, productivity tools, email, security, backup, cloud sync, share, etc. And then 14% on PaaS, and this includes application development platforms like Red Hat, OpenShift, and Cloud Foundry, Pivotal. And then 14% on infrastructure as a service, and this includes tools like Amazon Web Services, Rackspace, and Azure. So what's also interesting to note, Jeff, is not only that, but over the next few years, the cloud service developer community is expected to triple, which will help drive a 10-fold increase in the number of cloud-based solutions.
Well, another indication of that growth, Stephen, is that THINKstrategies launched its own online directory called the Cloud Computing Showplace about 5 years ago. And that showplace now has over 2,500 company listings across 90 different categories. So there really has been a proliferation of players in this business, and I think we're going to see this trend accelerate as your numbers indicate, not only because of the success of cloud services themselves, but there's a generational effect in all of this, with the younger generation growing up on clouds and being digital natives when it comes to these kinds of services. Yep. But the next myth, I think, is about how to be successful in this marketplace. Because of that proliferation I mentioned, Stephen, there are a lot of folks who think that there are just too many players, and they're concerned about whether or not there's room for their businesses to fit in this increasingly competitive marketplace. So what are you seeing when it comes to selling cloud services in this rapidly evolving market that we're talking about today?
Yeah, I think you hear a lot that, cloud services just aren't right for my type of business or my type of vertical. And actually that's not true, because companies in a wide range of verticals offer cloud services. And here's just a sample of some of the industries selling cloud-based software: financial services, telecommunications, mobile retail, business services. And if I pick on a couple of examples, for telcos, the use case is fairly straightforward. Customers are used to going to their providers for essentials like internet and telephony services, phone services. So it's a logical next step to bundle an application, something like Microsoft Office 365 with that, and sell them as a package, as a bundle. But we can also look at a business services example, and I think ADP is a good example. They have an online solution that HR teams can use to manage payroll and other administrative tasks. So they offer cloud service add-ons, software that complements their core solution, which brings even more value to those HR teams. And this really is an ecosystem play, and it's becoming increasingly common. According to actually some research we did recently, nearly 1 in 5 Fortune 100 companies offer a public developer program or toolkits to make this sort of ecosystem building possible. And when we look at IoT, that's another sector where ecosystems will be very important. This is going to be a very exciting sector for cloud services in the upcoming years, with lots of opportunities for both developers and providers. And I was reading a report from the World Economic Forum just the other day, and they're already saying this is a $2.3 trillion market, and by 2020 going to accelerate to around 19 trillion, so a massive opportunity.
Yeah, we absolutely agree with that. In fact, ThinkStrategies hosted an event back in September here in the Boston area around the Internet of Things that we call the Connected Cloud Summit, because we think that the Internet of Things, in fact, is being powered by the cloud. We wouldn't be talking about it if it weren't for the cloud providing that ubiquitous connectivity and the ability to capture data and allow people to share that data. But what we're also seeing is that with all of the discussion about cloud and the Internet of Things, we're still at early stages here. That in terms of adoption, it's only a very small percentage of organizations that have begun to adopt cloud, have begun to initiate Internet of Things programs. So there's still plenty of opportunities to establish cloud businesses and to sell to specific vertical markets, as you suggested, Stephen. But the real question is, how do you make money in this business? Because all we read about is how companies are giving away these services, or at least it seems like they're giving it away or competing at least on price. How do you make money when it comes to selling cloud services? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, certainly. I think that when many people think apps, they imagine 99-cent games you play on your smartphone. Whether that's Game of Thrones, Game of War, Angry Birds, etc. But business applications are an entirely different class. Business application sales can be large, they can be multi-year contracts that provide recurring revenue. So to see how much businesses application sales differ from those mobile consumer applications, it's probably worth considering something like Microsoft Office 365. In fact, their enterprise edition is priced at, I want to say, $20 per user per month, and requires an annual commitment, which means the yearly cost per user is $240. So even a relatively small company with, say, 30 employees, they're going to spend over $7,000 per year on Office 365, which is a sizable contract. And going further, an enterprise with 100 employees, they're going to be spending $24,000, and a company with 500 employees will spend $120,000 a year, and so on. So you can see how that is actually a pretty large sum of money. Now, the true benefit of selling cloud services is that with recurring revenue you gain over the entire lifetime of your customer. And this is really important. Predictability in the business is obviously a very highly valuable proposition.
Well, it's not only about the predictability, it's also about the ability to better understand how your customers are actually utilizing these applications on a day-to-day basis. You know, Stephen, how in the past we would be selling software to our customers, maybe helping them to install that software and picking up the phone in response to any calls or complaints that they might have in terms of how that software was working, but we really didn't know how they were using the software in their day-to-day work. And the nice thing about these cloud services is it gives us an indication as to when they're using them, why they're using them, and how they're using them, which allows us to better understand what they might need next. So, with that in mind, the question becomes, whether or not these kinds of services really sell themselves, because the value proposition seems to be there, but in truth, customers are apprehensive about how these services work and how to make them work within their organizations. Where are the opportunities to, in fact, provide a value add and help to sell these services? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a nice segue into talking about maybe one of the most surprising myths about cloud services, in that they don't sell themselves. Applications are not bought, they're sold. So people go to the App Store, a consumer one, and they download Candy Crush, Angry Birds, as we said. But when it comes to buying cloud services, customers, they do want expert advice and guidance. And there are a number of best practices that will help you be successful. We don't have time to go into all of them today. Happy to speak about them at a later date, or actually share that data with everyone on the call. But let me touch on at least a couple of them today. So here's an example from one of our partners. I won't give you their name, obviously, but the data is very relevant. And this service provider has seen some of its most dramatic marketplace sales numbers, so application sales, as a direct result of the efforts of its own sales team. So, for example, call centers drive more than 95% of its cloud services purchases. And these types of purchases are more than 3 times greater on average than purchases made at the marketplace website. Moreover, the majority of the sales include a 12-month, at least a 12-month contract. And these sales include multiple products bundled together, which is obviously very important. So what's interesting is, even though people have bought through those call centers initially, many customers return to make subsequent self-service purchases online at the web-based marketplace, often buying higher priced products when they do. And this is, data and information that our partners share with us. So that's pretty interesting, exciting information. Bottom line, I think, is that customers want a white glove experience, and that can be achieved through investment in a sales team, such as in a call center example. But another way is to think about how do you provide that expert focused application catalog curation that customers are looking for. As a provider of the service, your customer, the businesses that you serve better than anyone else. So, you don't want to be throwing 250 plus applications up on a website. How do you create it to make sure there's real relevancy to what you're trying to help your customers solve? As we touched upon, applications are not bought, they are sold.
Well, we've got a couple of moments here where I think we can delve a little bit more deeply into that point. You mentioned in your response to that myth the opportunity for a provider, a cloud provider, to do a couple of things. Number one, to really build on their trust that they've gained from the customer to deliver services that the customer feels comfortable and confident with. We're talking about virtual services here, and something you can't touch very often is something you can't understand. So there's the opportunity for a trusted service provider to deliver a series of applications that the customer feels comfortable with. But you also mentioned the curation idea, which is putting together a assortment of services that are catered for a specific target market. You want to spend a couple more moments talking about those ideas?
Sure. So, an example, we touched a little bit upon this earlier, would be, human capital management company like ADP, for example. They're taking a core service of their own and wrapping other services around that to create value to their ecosystem and their customers. So, there's a place where they're making sure that there's relevancy to their customer base. That would be one example, for example.
Well, another idea that we've been talking to a number of companies about is that the information about how these applications are being used can be aggregated in such a way that you can provide useful benchmark data for customers so they can see if they're getting the right level of value based upon their utilization of those applications. And, it's interesting. You can't manage what you can't measure, but you also really can't determine how well you're managing the use of these applications if you don't have a comparative benchmark. And what these cloud software as a service applications allow you to do, in fact, is to get a sense of how you compare and contrast with your peers. So I think it's another important thing to keep in mind as this marketplace evolves. But let's move on to the next. Thanks. Let's move on to that next myth, which has to do with how complicated is this stuff? Is the selling of cloud services too complex technically for a lot of companies to pull off? And you work with a lot of companies. What do you think?
Well, that's a good question. So it's partially true, I think is fair to say. Selling cloud services is complex in that it requires some advanced capabilities such as billing, provisioning, identity management. But there are now advanced platforms that can provide an end-to-end solution. So, instead of doing a technical deep dive, let me spend a couple of minutes on what you should look for in a cloud service commerce platform provider, because I think that would be probably most helpful. So, first of all, there's the technology. Does the platform provider handle the things I just mentioned? Billing, provisioning, identity management. Now, maybe, as important, or more importantly, is the solution cost effective? For example, some platform providers might offer a platform with low upfront costs, but then charge you for every cloud service that you want to add on and sell. And, that integration, that cost mounts pretty quickly. Secondly, is actually the catalog of cloud services that you want to sell. And this is, somewhat related to the first point that I made. If it's hard or if it's expensive to add the additional applications you want to sell, then success will be nearly impossible. So you want to look for a provider with an existing catalog of the applications you want to sell, or at the very least, make sure that they have a very easy, flexible way to integrate those. And then, lastly, Jeff, I'd say that, find a partner with industry experience and expertise. Work with providers who already have experience in cloud services. And this includes deploying cloud service marketplaces, integrating new applications, and migrating users from one platform to another. This is really essential, that ability to migrate to. If we look at the some of the customers that we have that are moving to AppDirect, and migrating Office 365, for example, making sure there's that seamless, great customer experience.
Yeah, we absolutely agree. When we're talking to customers, we point out that it is, or it may appear to be a buyer's marketplace because there is that proliferation of players out there and there's a wide array of service offerings. But in truth, first of all, you want a trusted supplier to rely upon, but then also you want a strategic supplier who understands your business, has the right portfolio of services, and is best geared towards meeting your business objectives, or else you get what you pay for. It may be a commodity marketplace in many people's eyes, but there are a lot of pitfalls in buying the wrong solutions and trying to build your business around that. So, we've gone through a number of myths here, Stephen, and I think we've made a number of important points. What are the key takeaways as far as evaluating these service opportunities when you talk to companies who are thinking about how it applies to the App Store world?
Right. So, I mean, first of all, and I think we showed this, in the first slide, is clearly there's a huge opportunity in cloud services, and it's one of the fastest growing sectors in IT, and SaaS particularly. Second, from retail to telco to the Internet of Things, a wide variety of businesses can benefit from getting involved in cloud services, whether that's selling cloud services or integrating their services into a platform. Third, selling cloud services can drive significant revenue, but even more than that, it can provide predictable recurring revenue. And as you touched upon, Jeff, it also gives you those great customer insights into usage, what that looks like, and that gives you the ability then to cross-sell and upsell additional services to that customer. Fourth, you have to make an effort to sell cloud services. People won't just buy them on their own. There are a lot of best practices that can help you with this, but the call center and the app catalog curation are among some of the most effective. Lastly, but certainly not least, is finding a knowledgeable partner that can help you go to market and make selling cloud services much faster and easier. I think that actually AppDirect has got quite a bit of experience in all these areas, so we're more than happy to talk about how you can succeed in cloud services, and really no matter what platform you end up using.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll take a couple of moments to reinforce a couple of these points. There's not only a great opportunity to move in this direction, we believe it's imperative that organizations do so. This is where the world is going. This is where the next generation, if not this generation, is going to be expecting the apps to reside and the apps to be designed to support. That is the cloud world. And therefore, this is the right time to be moving in this direction. And there are great ways of capitalizing on this opportunity via the cloud and get even greater insights into how your customers are utilizing your products and services, so you can become more customer-centric and be more successful in supporting their needs. So we think this is a wonderful opportunity for customers of ours, our clients who are delivering these services, to gain a competitive advantage in an increasingly challenging marketplace where the opportunities really are becoming infinite, especially with the Internet of Things over the horizon now. So as we look at these opportunities and we talk about these ideas, my guess is we've probably sparked a few questions along the way. So, Maddie, anything come up while we were talking in terms of questions from the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to point out to our attendees, if you do have some lingering questions, we do have some time with Jeff and Stephen. So if you look to the top left of your presentation module, you can send them over our way, and I'll do my best to pass them along. But one I received during the presentation was related to myth 4, which is cloud services sell themselves. I think, Stephen, this is headed your way. But you had mentioned call center and direct sales, and that there are some other areas of cloud service that cloud service commerce enables. So can you talk about what exactly those other areas are exactly, and where people can look to expand their business?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So, several cloud applications and services, are self-service, but as we touched on, most customers still prefer a customized touch when it comes to the purchase stage. And to meet this need, your cloud service commerce strategy should really look across every channel there is to reach your customers. So I think of this in terms of an omni-channel experience. So, whether that's call center, direct sales, online sales, retail, bundling with your core products or solutions, or perhaps professional services, enabling your VARs, your reseller agents, is incredibly powerful to extend that. And of course, on mobile devices. And a live example of that would be, for example, Samsung Knox offering Office 365, for example. An omni-channel experience not only drives revenue and maximizes cross-sell and upsell opportunities, but it also helps ensure that you're seen as a trusted advisor in your space. And being that trusted advisor is incredibly important. People want to buy from local trusted advisors. So, great question. Thank you.
And we have one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to interject. That omni-channel idea is a very important aspect of all this. As more and more organizations think about adopting a digital strategy, which is also geared towards becoming more customer-centric, thinking in terms of multiple channels of market, and the buzzword du jour is omni-channel. The cloud is really at the heart of that.
Absolutely. And I actually had another question that came in about one of the other terms that we've heard pop up a couple times in the presentation, and that was cloud service commerce. So, Stephen, what exactly does that mean to you and to AppDirect?
That's a good question. So, cloud service commerce is based on the foundation of a cloud platform that helps developers, ISVs, integrate cloud services to the platform. It helps providers, service providers distribute and sell those services and perhaps their own products via the platform, and business consumers to find, buy, use, and manage those services on the platform. So cloud service commerce really ties together these three entities into a single ecosystem. I think it's the most succinct way that I could put that.
Great. Well, we really wanted to keep things short and sweet today, so I do want to say a big thank you to Stephen and Jeff for joining, and most importantly, all of our attendees. I know the time zones can be a bit difficult, so we very much appreciate it. Steve, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jeff, actually, as we just have a minute or two left, is, in the work that he's done, whether it's IoT or certainly with his events around Cloud Channel Summit, just your view, Jeff. You've asked me a lot of questions. Sort of big picture. What do you see as incredibly relevant and important from your side?
Well, I appreciate that. And the way I put it is, the more things change, the more they remain the same. A pivotal part of the technology industry of the past has always been the role of the channel partner in terms of taking those off-the-shelf hardware and software products that we depended upon in the old world and customizing them or catering them to specific customer requirements. And the same thing holds true in the cloud. Even though they may seem to be commodities, even though they may seem to be relatively straightforward, in fact, because of the proliferation process, because of the requirements to embed these or integrate these into existing environments to create hybrid systems, it's just as important than it has. It's always been important, and it will continue to be important, that there be channel partners in place to, as you said, curate these offerings and deliver these offerings in a cohesive fashion to meet specific customer requirements. So we think there are wonderful opportunities for these kinds of services, as you put it, cloud service commerce, to gain a place in this marketplace, and it will be essential for the success of both the cloud vendors and for those customers looking to take advantage of these services. So it's been fun to be a part of this webinar. I'm very pleased that you invited me to help out.
Thank you, Jeff. And I know, Maddie, you've got a couple of things that you wanted to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to let everybody know if they have any remaining questions or comments for Stephen or Jeff, we absolutely want to keep lines of communication open, so you can use, again, that tab on the upper left, or just reach out to info@appdirect.com, and I will make sure that they get a hold of your questions or comments. And also, as a note, we will be following up with an on-demand version of today's webinar, so keep an eye out for that should you want to review anything or share with any friends or colleagues that couldn't make the live version today. And in addition to that, we will have some learning materials to pass along, so look for those. So thank you again for joining. We're so excited to have everyone here. We are going to be following up with another webinar series June 2nd, 2015. We're going to do a dive into your guide to the AppDirect monetization suite. So we'd love to have you again, and you can register as soon as possible, really. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.